Lioness is going to work it out how she works it out. Either this is a successful mission or she fails.
Hi, I'm Jez, I'm a film and TV director, and in this vid I'm going to lean on my 20 years in the biz to describe why Lioness was an underrated gem and why the finale totally stuck the landing. Here's what I'm going to cover. There will be spoilers throughout, so if you've not seen it yet, watch this vid instead. Also link in the description.
Yes, sir.
Right, number one, genre, critical response, title. These three elements are all tied in together. In the UK at least, Paramount Plus has stuck Special Ops onto the title, terrified that it wouldn't catch the young male audience normally interested in the genre. But in the process, they set the show up as something that it absolutely isn't. A cookie-cutter, jingoistic, cliched spy action shooter.
Can we just shoot this fucker? What the fuck are we doing here?
He's not armed.
Because as soon as you add Special Ops, then you massively undermine the dramatic credentials of whatever it is you've made. And unfortunately, I think this steered the critics too, especially those who reviewed the show from the first episode alone, before it had a chance to show its multi-layered, morally ambiguous hand.
I won't break.
Everyone breaks.
Not me.
Everyone.
And I think that's to be expected, coming from Taylor Sheridan, the writer of Sicario, which was brutal, authentic, complex, and with more than a few societal and philosophical questions. For me, Lioness fits into the same dramatic universe as Sicario, one that feels pretty close to our own.
Fucking asshole.
Debriefs are unpleasant for a reason, Joe.
It's just whilst Blunt, Brolin and Benicio waged the US's war on drugs, Saldana, Kidman and De Oliveira waged the US's war on terror.
You're blind on purpose. Do not follow me. Do not look at me. Understood?
So following on, number two, it feels pretty damn authentic. Whether it is or not, I don't know. I've not gone undercover for a special CIA program or worked at the top level of policy making in the White House. But there actually was a real-life US Army task force in Iraq and Afghanistan called the FET, the Female Engagement Team, made up solely of women that came to be known as Team Lioness.
When the Lioness team was first formed, we just needed female soldiers to frisk and interrogate female insurgents. You can't have a man running his hand over some Muslim teenager's groin.
So there is some authentic basis to the premise, although of course a large degree of dramatic license to make it work on screen. The point here really is that whether it's authentic or not doesn't really matter. From the audience perspective, it just has to feel it.
If your cover is blown, there is no saving you. That's what this job has taught me. You have to save yourself.
And so how do you do that with your TV show? Well, it starts with months or years of research, then writing, casting, production design, direction, lighting, sound design, music. It's an ethos that runs through the whole show, where the fundamental rule is to avoid cliche.
We wake up when we feel like it. That's when we wake up. Welcome to CIA.
Cliche is always there, lurking for any of us putting stories on screen, and can work its way into any of these departments, especially on a genre that's as familiar to the audience as this one. And that's also why the show being female-led and racially mixed doesn't feel like an attempt at being woke, because it's entirely organic and nay essential for the story it's trying to tell. Nor does the writer labour that fact, it just is.
Dodged a bullet there.
All those nosy friends are gonna be a fucking problem.
I could talk about creating this sense of authenticity for ages, because Taylor Sheridan is excellent at it. But we need to keep this video short, so moving on.
That's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Number three, heart. It's so important for any drama, but often overlooked in this genre.
You don't think we should do it?
No, I don't.
It's why Jo's relationship with her husband is so important, because it roots us in the real world and what the stakes of what they're doing ultimately are. And it's also essential for theme, which I'll come on to shortly.
Go to fucking bed.
And of course, we have to root for Cruz too, and it's why it's so important to see her backstory. Not only is it important for her choices going forwards, but we're also 100% on her side once she smacks her abusive partner with a pan.
Oh, well, fuck, like what the fuck is wrong with you?
And it's this backstory that's also so crucial for selling her subsequent relationship with Aaliyah. Writing lesbian love scenes is high risk dramatically, especially in this genre and from a male writer, where it could easily be seen as token titillation for a predominantly male audience. But the way that Cruz and Aaliyah are written, it totally makes sense when they get together. They're both victims of a brutally paternalistic culture and upbringing. For Cruz, abuse and then the military, and for Aaliyah, religious and cultural oppression.
For me to choose love would be the death of me.
In each other, they find true emotional safety and freedom to be their true selves. A situation laced with dark irony given Cruz's mission. But for each of them, it makes sense that they'd only find this with a woman, which is why their relationship feels organic.
I would love to feel it. Just once. Me too.
And yes, you are totally rooting for them to ditch this whole thing and go find happiness on a Pacific island somewhere. And from a dramatic perspective, if you want the ending to hit the hardest, then the betrayal has to be the most severe. So another achievement for lacing a somewhat inevitable story beat, creating the relationship that is, with authenticity and heart. And this is done throughout in Jo's relationship with her husband and with her daughters.
Mom? Yeah. It was you.
Number 4. Themes. On a superficial level, you could look at this show and think, yay, it's the Americans being the best and blowing up all the bad guys. Because they're the best trained, have the best tech and the smartest tactics. America, fuck yeah! But the show isn't really saying this at all, and it's why Jo's family is so key, as is Caitlin's relationship with her husband. Because saving lives is at the heart of what both Jo and Neil do, albeit in very different ways.
You know or you agree?
I disagree. With every fiber of my being, but I'll do it.
And the 3 words that I believe sum up the core theme of the show: at what cost? Because you can be really smart, have all the toys, all the training and all the tech, but are you really that clever? Because at the end of the day, when you get to shout Geronimo and the mission is a success, what have you actually achieved? Saving lives is what's held up as the be-all and end-all to justify morally dubious choice after morally dubious choice. But really, saving lives is just fugazi, a carrot to enable the people at the top to maneuver for power, influence and resources, let alone something as trivial as money.
What happens to oil prices when 10% of production returns to the open market? It's a calamity for our strategic partners.
This conceit is essentially a compelling idea. Is it what it's really like in the halls and corridors of power? Maybe, maybe not, but it feels like it could be, and that's enough to get us thinking.
What the fuck was that about?
Not here.
From my personal perspective as a writer and director, I judge success as my ability to make the audience feel something in the moment and leave them thinking afterwards. It's to the credit of everyone creatively involved on Lioness that the show delivers both of these in spades.
Here. Looks like you don't sleep either.
So, finally, the ending. Spoilers ahoy! Before I even finished the first episode, I made the bold call that the season would end with Jo being put in the same position as she was at the start of the pilot, having to choose success in the mission over the life of her asset. And her arc would be defined by the choice she then made. It's to the show's great credit that it doesn't do this, i.e. it doesn't do what convention demands. And in the finale we discover that it's actually Cruz who's the protagonist of the show, not Jo. Why? Well, because she's the one who's given the arc and given the crisis choice. Is she prepared to betray perhaps the only person she's ever loved and sacrifice her very humanity for the sake of some nebulous greater good?
Your alias friend from the States.
The fact that we never get to the beat we subconsciously expect, Jo calling a strike on her asset, means that when we get to this climactic scene in the kitchen, we're caught off guard. Now, one rule of writing is that coincidence is to be avoided late in a story. But engineering this meeting doesn't feel like one, as we've already set up Bad Dad as being on site. And the other rule of coincidence is that you can kind of get away with using it if it's bad luck. And right now, Cruz meeting Amroe whilst muttering into the freezer does feel like bad luck. In a beautiful piece of writing, the subsequent scene twists and turns to give the maximum shock to the turning point when it comes. It's super tense, and amazingly, we're warming to Amroe.
You, on the other hand, are 30 years late to being impressed by me in my shorts.
Then we get the tweak that powers the subsequent turning point. The world's best ice cream melts Cruz's marine training, and the tension drops.
Well?
Wow, that's best in the world. I told you.
It is, of course, now that douchebag bursts in, shouting Marine, and the scene turns. Don't know if you're into your rally driving, but it's a little bit like the Scandinavian flick when you need to get the car to drift into the corner. You go one way and then flick hard the other. And this subsequent action is fast and it's brutal. There's no heroic deaths, no heroic final lines. It's just quick, messy, and ultimately clinical. Now, I've never killed any terrorists, but if I was a highly trained Marine with a lifetime of suffering emotional and physical abuse, this might be just how it would go down. It's shocking and it feels absolutely authentic in the moment. And with this action, Cruz's choice is made. Instinct made it for her. From this point on, we're dealing with the ramifications: emotional, practical, and political.
You fucked us.
I don't choose the list.
We get another angle on the theme of the show.
I'll tell you what we just did. All we did was make the next generation of terrorists.
Success, but at what cost? No one wins here. Literally every single character is punished for success.
You know, and don't give me shit because we did our fucking job.
Bar, perhaps, Errol.
Brent crude is down $8 a barrel in pre-trading.
Which makes a powerful statement about who it's really all for.
The people who control the bill.
Yes, the Americans are very good at shooting guns, but this is not a hawkish show by any means.
Now we're getting somewhere.
As for my prediction and the arc for Jo, well, she does lose another Lioness, but in a very different way.
I quit. I'm out. I'm fucking done with this, and I'm fucking done with you.
Does she deserve the punch from Cruz? Maybe. As for Quibbles, well, they're pretty trivial really. Why are bad guys always such a bad shot? I know it's a moving target at night and she's a fast runner, but still, there's dozens of them firing automatic weapons. You'd imagine one of them would manage to clip her at some point. And a couple of thoughts that came to me after, which, to be fair, is exactly when you do want your audience to spot the plot holes rather than at the time. Why is Amroe in the kitchen? Because I thought women and men were separated on this compound. And from Cruz's perspective, why go all the way to a kitchen to get water? What's wrong with the bathroom? Arguably, she needed the distance from Aaliyah at that time, but meh. Anyway, quibbles aside, great show. Season 2 is yet to be confirmed, but I, for one, have got my fingers crossed.
Ain't this job the fucking best?
What did you think of Lioness? Agree or disagree with my analysis? Let me know in the comments. And if you've got this far, help me battle the monstrous YouTube algo with a sly little like. It is much appreciated. By the way, if you are new to the channel and quite reasonably wondering who the hell I am, well, I talk about it at the end of my Top Gun Maverick film. Link here and in the description. There are also links for breakdowns to Succession, The Last of Us, Silo, Strange New Worlds, Secret Invasion, and Hijacks. If you've seen any of those, please do go check them out. Next on my channel, I'm going to dive into the next piece of the Star Wars spin-off galaxy, Ahsoka. So if you've got any questions on that front, chuck them in the comments. Catch you next time.